morning. Happy Wednesday. So today we'll be starting a new series called Read With Me, where we'll just be reading a book and going over what we learn. The purpose of this series is, one, I know that reading out loud helps you speak better. Second thing is, this YouTube channel to me is all about learning. You know what I'm saying? So, if we can learn something new, that's great. That's awesome. And if I can inspire somebody else to start reading, then that's what I'm here for. That's that's what this is all about. Today we will be reading Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. I've already started it. I'm on page 77, so we're just gonna pick up from there. This is my second time at this book, reading this book. I take a lot of notes. I don't know if you guys could see, but I take a lot of notes and stuff like that. I like to dive deep. I'm a big learner. I'm a student of almost everything. And this book is The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. Listen, man, I want to find and keep love. So that's why we're here reading this today. So let's get started, man. Let me just set my camera up. See, I don't know if that's a good angle. I don't know. So chapter 5, Living with a Sixth Sense for Living with a Sixth Sense for Danger, the Anxious Attachment Style. The famous 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza said, all happiness or unhappiness solely depends upon the quality of the object to which we are attached by love. So choose wisely when you are getting involved with someone, because the stakes are high. Your happiness depends on it. We find this to be particularly true for people with an anxious attachment style. By being unaware of the attachment system, they risk suffering a great deal in relationships, as can be seen in the example of Amir's colleague, Emily. Nice. You're only as troubled as the relationship you're in. When Emily was in her psychiatry residence, she decided she also wanted to become a psychoanalyst. Before starting classes at the Psychoanalytic Institute, she was required to embark on her own analysis for at least a year, going to therapy 4 times a week, lying on the couch and talking about whatever came to mind. In the beginning, Emily was doing very well. In fact, she appeared so put together that her analyst thought she would be done with the analysis within 2 years max. Unheard of, considering that analysis usually lasts at least 4 to 5 years. Then she met David, whom she fell for very quickly. Note that. David, an inspiring actor, turned out to be bad news. He gave her mixed signals about wanting to be together, and this really unnerved Emily. It changed her behavior until she appeared to have completely destabilized. Wow. So she fell for this dude quickly, right? Fell in love. But he gave her mixed signals. He ain't really wanting a relationship. And this, because she's so attached, sent her around the wrong path. She's not okay because of this, right? It destabilized her. We used to run together around a reservoir in Central Park, and she would bring both her work pager and cell phone with her. And in those days, cell phones were relatively big and heavy. She would alternate checking first the one and then the other every few minutes just to see if he had called. She was obsessed, you feel what I'm saying? She was highly attached at this point. At work, she would spend hours tracking David's activities on a then novel internet, creating a false internet persona and chatting him up in the chat rooms he frequented. In short, she became obsessed, like I said. Her analyst would not make sense of this horrible transformation in his most promising candidate. From a resilient, together person, Emily began to change into someone with masochistic, borderline personality traits, and now seemed that analysis would take many years. Okay, so let's talk about it, right? Emily, she went to this psychoanalytic institute. I guess she was studying, she wanted to become a psychoanalyst, right? So while she was being analyzed, everything seemed all right with her. She seemed, I don't know, like a competent person. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about Emily is she had an anxious attachment style. She fell for people very quickly. So she met David, obviously. She fell in love quite quickly, and she became obsessed. Now, the thing is, as we read earlier, our well-being, our happiness depends on our relationship, and our partner, especially for people with an anxious attachment style, right? So as she become obsessed, and this guy David isn't really reciprocating that energy, he's giving her mixed signals and things of that nature. It messes her up, you know what I'm saying? So she go from this fully competent person to someone who's like, not all the way there. You know what I'm saying? So that's a very powerful thing on how much relationships can affect our well-being and our happiness, right? Relationships, dating, all that, right? For especially for people with an anxious attachment style. All right. A sensitive attachment system. Hold on, let me see. But Emily's was not a case of masochism. Hold on, what that word means. Hold up. Stay with me now. I don't even know if I'm... Hold on.
Masochism.
Oh, masochism. Okay. Masochism is the derivation of pleasure, particularly sexual gratification, from experiencing pain, humiliation, or abuse. Often termed sexual masochism, it can also refer to psychological tendency to seek out pain or self-defeating situations. When these behaviors cause significant distress or impairment, it may be diagnosed as sexual masochism disorder. The tendency to derive pleasure, especially sexual gratification, from one's own pain or humiliation. So you get pleasure out of pain. Interesting. We learned something new. Masochism. But Emily's was not a case of masochism or borderline personality disorder. It was a simple case of an activated attachment system. People with an anxious attachment style like Emily have a super sensitive attachment system. As we mentioned in previous chapters, the attachment system is the mechanism in our brain responsible for tracking and monitoring the safety and availability of our attachment figures. Ooh. Okay. Just to reiterate that. Our attachment system is responsible for making sure that the connection with our partner is okay. It's actually pretty interesting because when we go way, way, way back in time, our survival was dependent on being with somebody, in numbers, because we're stronger in numbers, right? So we depended on people, and that's how we survived, right? Being together with somebody. And so I guess our brain developed a mechanism to make sure, okay, this person is extremely important for my survival. Let me make sure our connection is good. It's pretty interesting, right? The attachment system is the mechanism in our brain responsible for tracking and monitoring the safety and availability of our attachment figures, right? We want to make sure that we're safe with them and they're available. You know what I'm saying? Right. If you have an anxious attachment style, you possess a unique ability to sense when your relationship is threatened. Even a slight hint that something may be wrong will activate your attachment system. And once it's activated, you're unable to calm down until you get a clear indication from your partner that they are truly there for you and the relationship is safe. People with other attachment styles also get activated, but they don't pick up on subtle details that people with an anxious attachment style do. So I don't want to keep stopping, but I don't know, this is good stuff, right? So people with an anxious attachment style are generally more sensitive. They're more susceptible to changes in a relationship. Like they detect it. You feel what I'm saying? Like, so, um, so, you know, even like these little minor slight hints, maybe your partner was a little, maybe he ain't call you today. You feel what I'm saying? Or, maybe he ain't text you back. Or maybe as he's speaking to you, his tone is a little bit off. He seemed down, you know what I'm saying? People with an anxious attachment style will pick up on this pretty quickly, right? And they'll activate their attachment system. And so they'll begin to worry. Is this person, is my partner want me? Did I do something wrong? You feel what I'm saying? Things like that, right? Anxious attachment style. To demonstrate how sensitive the attachment system of people with an anxious attachment style, a study from Chris Fraley's lab at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He is the same researcher who designed the ECR attachment styles inventory. In collaboration with Paula N. from Blaise Pascal University in Clermont-Ferrand, France, found a unique way of measuring the vigilance to social cues of the anxious attachment style. They used a morph movie technique, a computerized movie in which a face initially displays a specific emotional expression, for example, anger, and gradually evolves into one displaying a neutral expression. Participants were asked to stop the movie at the frame at which they believed the original emotion had dissipated. They found that people with an anxious attachment style were more likely to perceive the onset of emotion earlier than other people. I don't know, it's like people with an anxious attachment style, like I said, as said in the book, they're susceptible to little changes in emotions, like people's facial expressions. That's pretty cool. It's like a superpower, if you ask me. Also, when the task was reversed, starting with a neutral face and gradually moving to a pronounced expression, more anxious individuals perceive the onset of the emotion earlier. These findings suggest that people with an anxious attachment style are indeed more vigilant to changes in others' emotional expression and can have a higher degree of accuracy and sensitivity to other people's cues. Let's read that one more time. These findings suggest that people with an anxious attachment style are indeed more vigilant to changes in others' emotional expression and can have a higher degree of accuracy and sensitivity to other people's cues. That's so powerful. However, this finding comes with a caveat. The study showed that people with an anxious attachment style tend to jump to conclusions very quickly. And when they do, they tend to misinterpret people's emotional state. It's like oversensitivity. Only when the experiment was designed in such a way that anxious participants had to wait a little longer. They couldn't react immediately when they spotted a change, but had to wait a little longer and get more information before making a judgment did they have an advantage over other participants. This is an important lesson for someone with an anxious attachment style. If you just wait a little longer before reacting and jumping to conclusions, you will have an uncanny ability to decipher the world around you and use it to your advantage. But shoot from the hip and you're all over the place making misjudgments and hurting yourself. Okay. So your boyfriend or girlfriend, they ain't text you back, right? Y'all was texting, they ain't text you back. Or maybe they ain't really text you all day today, right? It's people with an anxious attachment style, people who are generally anxious, they pick up on this very, very quickly. They're like very sensitive to this, right? So someone with an anxious attachment style, they generally jump to conclusions. The world is about to end. Do they not like me anymore? Are they breaking up with me? Are they seeing somebody else? Right? But if you just wait a little bit, right? Maybe ask if your partner's okay. Maybe check on your partner's well-being before jumping to conclusions will, you know, will help your relationship a lot better and calm your emotions as a anxious, person. All right. And hurting yourself in a relationship, right? Once activated, they are often consumed with thoughts that have a single purpose: to reestablish closeness with their partner. These thoughts are called activating strategies. This is a key one. Activating strategies are any thoughts or feelings that compel you to get close physically or emotionally to your partner. Once they respond to you in a way that reestablishes security, you can revert back to your calm, normal self. Okay. Activating strategies. Thoughts and feelings that compel you to seek closeness with your partner. Thinking about your mate. Difficulty. So, here are the activating strategies. Right? They listed it. Thinking about your mate. Difficulty concentrating on other things. Remembering only their good qualities. Putting them on a pedestal. Underestimating your talents and abilities and overestimating theirs. Underestimating your talents and abilities and overestimating theirs. An anxious feeling that goes away only when you're in contact with them. Believing this is your only chance for love, as in, I'm only compatible with very few people. What are the chances I'll find another person like them? It takes years to meet someone new. I'll end up alone. Believing that even though you're unhappy, you better not let go, as in, if she leaves me, she'll turn into a great partner for someone else. He can change. All couples have problems. We're not special in that regard. Okay, so these are things that I guess anxious attachment style, anxious people tell themselves when their attachment system is activated. Yeah. In Emily's case, her attachment system was right on target. During the course of their relationship, she learned that David was watching internet porn for hours while she was at work, and he was supposedly out auditioning. She also found out that he was flirting online with other girls, including her made-up persona, in various chat rooms, but she still had a hard time breaking up with him. She was bombarded by activating strategies similar to those we've outlined above, thinking that he would change, that everyone has problems, and so on. So, okay, activating strategies are sort of things that compel you, as stated in the book, to, I guess, stay with your partner even in times of hardship. They kind of make you, I don't know, grab on to them. And your mind just comes up with reasons as to why you need to stay with your partner, even though they may not be the one for you. All right. During that time, for quite a while after the break, it took over a year before she could muster the courage to sever the tie. It took over a year before she came up with the courage to break up with the guy who wasn't any good for her, who was mistreating her, who was being unfaithful, you know what I'm saying, and talking to other girls. For some people, okay, your partner is being unfaithful. You might find it, okay, this ain't it. I gotta go. You might find it a little bit easier to break up with your partner or let it go. But for someone with an anxious attachment style, coupled with their anxiety and these activating strategies that they mentioned here, it makes it a lot harder to break up with someone. You know what I'm saying? Okay. She can't, Emily, during that time, for quite a while after the breakup, Emily spent her analysis talking mostly about him. Years later, after she married a great guy and went back to being her resilient self, she looks back at the whole experience with bewilderment. She can't believe she wasted her time in therapy examining the deep-seated roots of her fanatical behaviors surrounding that relationship. If only she had met a good guy sooner, one who didn't continually activate her attachment system, she would have spared herself from the unnecessary scrutiny of her masochistic, masochistic, borderline personality traits, which weren't true. It was just her attachment style being activated. Attachment system, sorry. The working of the attachment system. For someone who gets attached very quickly and has a very sensitive attachment system, learning how the system functions is invaluable. Many people with anxious attachment style, like Emily, live with a chronically activated attachment system without realizing it. Okay. On the following page, we illustrate how the attachment system works. Okay, so we gotta get up close and personal for this one. Okay, let me know. Let me know if y'all can see that. We're on this page here. So, the attachment system, finding your way to the comfort zone. So the first thing is sign of threat. My boyfriend hasn't called today. Is something wrong? Possibly. Now, after the sign of the threat came, here comes the activation of the attachment system. So she thinks to herself, maybe he's angry with me. Now, because she is wired to reestablish closeness with her partner, right? Seek partner's emotional presence. I'll invite him for a romantic dinner. Now, is my partner available or responsive? Will he answer a call back? Okay. Now, if he doesn't answer, now it's going to create, like it said here, a decreased security and greater distress. Oh my God, it's been 5 hours now. I left the office. Maybe he's leaving me. Maybe he's leaving me. You know what I'm saying? Those are the thoughts of someone with an anxious attachment style. Okay? Is there a chance we'll stay together? No sign of him. We're now in a danger zone. You know, her attachment system is definitely activated at this point. Every signal now is viewed as a threat. No sign of him. His assistant is dismissive. Will I ever hear from him again? Yes, I can't believe this. If we break up, I'll never find someone else like him. Wow. So, just to reiterate what we just read, right? Because I know that was a little shaky. It went over a scenario. Okay. The scenario is the boyfriend hasn't called in a few hours, right? So someone with an anxious attachment style, the first thing they think is, are they mad at me, right? Now, they want to reestablish this connection with them, so maybe, they invite them to a romantic dinner, to, reestablish that closeness that, I don't know, what's the best way to say this? Reestablish that closeness that was lost because he didn't call her in a few hours, right? So she invites him to this dinner, right? He's still not answering. So now it's like, now things are getting bad because now this person with an anxious attachment style, now their attachment system is activated. So now they start scrutinizing themselves and overthinking and jumping to conclusions, right? The world has ended at this point. The world is ending at this point. Is he leaving me? Will we ever speak again? Are we gonna break up? These are the thoughts that go on in someone with an anxious attachment style's head. Because they're not getting that attention. They don't feel that closeness with their partner. So that's basically what this scenario was all about. We're on to the last page, and then we're gonna drop it here. While Emily was with David, in terms of relationships, she lived her life in the danger zone. She felt like a tightrope walker without a safety net, anxiously struggling to keep her emotional balance as she went through endless cycles of activation, with only rare, brief respites of feeling secure before the cycle began again. Cycle. Danger zone, I'm okay. Danger zone, I'm okay. Danger zone, I'm okay. Cycle, right? That's no way to live. No way, relationships. That's not what we should be getting out of relationships. That cycle. All right. She felt an almost constant sense of threat to the relationship. She was always busy trying to minimize it by staying close to him. Be it by spending many precious hours online at work, pretending to be someone else, or by constantly talking about him in analysis or to her friends. In this way, she kept him in her mind at all times, super preoccupied with the relationship. All these seemingly erratic thoughts and behaviors, activating strategies, had one goal: to establish closeness with David. Had David been consistently available to Emily, these activating strategies would have been nipped in the bud instead of escalating out of control, and she would never have had to leave the relationship comfort zone. Now Emily no longer finds herself stuck in the danger zone. Her husband is loving, caring, and most important, available. She is still very aware, however, of the powerful force of an activated attachment system. Were she ever to enter another relationship with someone who wasn't consistently available, she will most likely revert back to her old, obsessed self. The thought that something like that could happen again sends chills down her spine. Okay, page 77 to 84, we're going to leave it off at 84. Right. To sort of summarize that last paragraph that we read, okay, you have an anxious attachment style. You're very susceptible to your partner's behaviors. Little things that your partner do can throw you off. You're an overthinker. You're very anxious. You're constantly in a state of threat, in terms of the relationship, right? So with this in mind, we have to seek people who are available to us consistently, right? If we're with someone who's throwing mixed signals or someone who's inconsistent, this will activate their attachment system, and where they're in this constant state of threat and danger in terms of the relationship. But by being with someone who's consistent, being with someone who's reassuring, being with someone who's available emotionally, not just physically, but emotionally, can calm our state of mind as someone with an anxious attachment style. We learned a lot today. This was great. You know what I'm saying? I see you guys in the next episode of Read With Me. Peace.